So in bad economic times, you're still going to want to make some money, right? You still need money to do things. So you want to make a living, lead a pretty good life. This is about 100 million ways that you can start businesses on a homestead, homestead related, non-homestead related, in an economic downturn, recession, or even Great Depression. So I'm an entrepreneur. My mind is always going, and there is a million ways that you can be successful, provide other people value in return for compensation. I have a million ideas, no time to do them all, obviously, it's because it's too many, but in bad economic times, which I think we're in and going into, maybe globally, but especially in the West, I don't think things are going to be zombie apocalypse bad, but there's going to be some major changes with different economic times moving forward. And these are some industries and ideas that I hope will help you out. So some of these are small farm, homestead related, which is in bad economic times, you want to be close to your food, right, and essentials, but also some non-homestead related. So let's kind of start with the non-homestead related. Discount retailers. People are going to want cheap stuff. A Canadian's favorite store is Dollarama. Other stores are going to be having trouble. Specialized stores are currently going out of business. What are they? Party City, Bootlegger, high brand name stores, things that are too expensive, right? People are looking for cheap goods to satisfy their needs when nobody has the money or the price of things is very, very high. So the cheaper things that you sell to satisfy somebody's needs, the better. Grocery stores over restaurants. So if you can sell people raw food that they can make at home, in theory, it's cheaper than going out to a restaurant. The last fast food burger I had was a fast food chain. I don't know if it's just Canada, but A&W, and a teen burger combo with fries and a medium Diet Coke was over $17. Okay, so even fast food places, they're really low quality food for a really, really high price. They're going to have trouble. Restaurants are going to have trouble. But if you can be a retailer, or maybe you have a bunch of small producers together, put their products in a store where you can get it to people for cheap so they can save money to cook at home. Repair and maintenance services. This is a throwaway society, right? If you need to change the oil in a little machine that you buy, it's actually probably easier and cheaper to just throw it in the garbage and buy a new one, right? But when people don't have the money or things are too expensive, you're going to have to start fixing things. So take, for instance, Cuba, where when they had their Cuban Revolution, they don't have any new vehicles. The vehicles that they have that are few and far between that are 60 years later still running are literally 4 vehicles that are Frankenstein together just to keep them kind of running on the road, right? Older vehicles, auto mechanics, you're going to need handyman services. So if your furnace quits, you need somebody that can come and fix it for a cheap price. Plumbers and trades. Now, the trade's not so much for building, but for maintaining, because there's not going to be a lot of building happening. Debt collection and repo man. People are driving fancy cars that they shouldn't be driving. It costs too much, $600 to $1,000 a month. People aren't going to be able to service their debt. So there's going to be a demand for repo mans. Now, another thing that's complementary to repo man would be a self-storage lot, which could just be a very well-fenced gravel area. Now, maybe you could rent it out to people to store their boats over the winter or RVs, but you can make a deal with all these debt refinancing companies that are going to take the asset back when people can't pay for them. You could have a place to store that for the repo man. Things like healthcare services. It doesn't matter if somebody has a condition or they need medication and they need care and they need checkups. Healthcare is always going to be a thing. And especially in bad economic times when people are probably not going to eat as healthy, like scurvy came back in Canada and things, that it's going to be a bigger strain on the healthcare system as well. So if you're in the healthcare industry, if you're a doctor or a nurse, even if it's government run or private sector, they're still going to need healthcare. Online education and e-learning. So we actually homeschool our kids, and my kids I consider to be very smart, and our kindergartners are doing grade 3 edition right now. If I had the time and the ambition for this business, man, an online school for homeschooling kids. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the education system's not good in Canada. That's why we homeschool. But what I should almost be doing is a whole other course and YouTube channel or something to provide like whiteboard education. Like, this is how we do math, guys. Like, 2 + 2 is this, and this is how we carry the 1. That's what I just did with my boys. In a downtime, when you have time anyways, create a really good homeschooling course with no woke stuff, with no crazy bare bones like math and science and reading and writing. Now, addictions and comfort foods, alcohol, tobacco. So if people drink, they're still going to drink. If people smoke, they're still going to smoke. My grandfather, when he was 14 years old, he left the Saskatchewan little pioneer homestead where he grew up, hopped on a train to the nearest town, and he worked in a candy store. And that candy store was actually thriving because a parent could go in there and for a penny, they could buy him a lollipop or something like that. So the candy store thrived. But people aren't going to quit smoking. People aren't going to quit drinking. So if you want to get into, I don't know, are you allowed to? You're allowed to grow tobacco for yourself. So that's kind of a hard industry. There's too much government. I don't even know if you're allowed to make your own alcohol, but maybe that's, just an industry that's going to continue to do well. Other necessities, just cleaning and sanitary services. So janitorial work, house cleaning businesses and offices, that's something that just has to be done. The garbage has to be taken out, right? Just basic necessities. Pet care and pet products. A lot of people today consider their pets to be another one of their children. Pet grooming, pet boarding, although people are going to be traveling less, so careful with that. Veterinary services, that's just like healthcare, that's an essential. And even homestead related would be good pet food. For instance, if you don't farm, you could approach a farm, and the farm's going to have lots of byproducts, or a butcher shop of organ meat or something that, actually humans should be eating organ meat, but we don't. So that stuff, a good grinder, grind up the bones and all the cartilage and things, and put it with some vegetables or something. You could talk to grocery stores, put it together, provide people a healthy pet food for their loved little pets. Entertainment and streaming services. So, hey, look at me. I'm Dean and I'm on YouTube. Typically, I sell things in the real world, like our smoothies we invented. I have to get production, and then I have to ship them. So I store them, and then I have to ship them, and there's all this logistics and thing. What a pain in the butt, right? YouTube, I turn on my camera, and I talk to you guys, and I try to provide you value that way. It doesn't have a lot of overhead. I take the time to do it. And in bad economic times, there's going to be a lot of people with times. Now, YouTube and the online stuff with AI and people just like bombing social media with content, they call it, that you have to be an authentic channel, in my opinion, and provide people actual value. But start a YouTube channel. If you have something good to share that could help others, then people are going to watch you on YouTube eventually. After a lot of hard work of making no money, then you make a tiny bit of money. So supplement your income. Now, in this world of kind of cyberpunk and computers and stuff and scammers and cybersecurity, there's always room for an IT person. That is just another service if you have that skill, but it better be good service, fast, reliable, for the best price, but just another essential service in today's day and age. Discounted travel and local tourism. This is one of my favorites that I'm actually pursuing. So I'm building a beautiful homestead so we don't feel the need to vacation. We kind of love it out here. I built a pond because I want fish protein and a water source for my other kind of endeavors. And then all of a sudden I got a really nice pond. Well, what if I build a nice little dock, put in for some infrastructure, and do a Airbnb beautiful cabin, like wood, finished everywhere with a wood stove, a little dock in the summer, an ice fishing shack in the winter? I would be booked up solid. I can make an entire living doing on that. If government's a pain in the butt, then I have to do it on a skid or wheels, so it's a movable building to get government out of the way. I'll do that. Now, people aren't going to be able to spend money on fuel and travel and airfare and train rides and trips to Disneyland. Like, I can't take my kids to Disneyland. It's way too expensive, and I don't even want to take them there, actually. They won't go on long road trips, but if you provide your local community a local tourism and a local experience for a cheaper price than an otherwise vacation, awesome. Another portion of that would be a RV lot and a campground. Now, your only thing, again, getting in the way would be government. So if you can get proper zoning or whatever, or permission or whatever to do that, you can set up infrastructure like electricity, big sewage system, water lines or something, and people can park an RV there for the summer, for the weekend. They can come bring a tent. All your overhead is in initial infrastructure, then it's just a gravel lot. You don't even need that much insurance because everybody else insures their RV, and give people a cheap option, so a cheap place to go for the weekend for a camping trip. Now, another thing to talk about, in economic downturns, there's not going to be a lot of things built. So no new houses, no big new developments, no commercial buildings being put up. So if you're in the trades or a home builder or something, you might have a little bit of trouble. I might consider switching to some maintenance and service sector of handyman renovations even. Renovations are going to go down, so if you're a kitchen cabinet builder, people are going to have less money. They're not going to be putting in new kitchens. They're going to make do with the kitchen that they have because it works. It would be nice to have a nice white or gray melamine kitchen, but I don't know. Can you deal with the flooring that you have in your house? Most people can. They're not going to spend the money on expensive hardwood. But if their furnace craps out, or their toilet's plugged, or there's a problem with their water system, or their roof is leaking, that has to be done. So I would stick to essential construction instead of new construction, personally. In an economic downturn, even government workers are going to feel the pain, whether it's high inflation or an economic downturn where they cut government. Before it gets really bad, the most secure job that you can get and the most desired job is actually a government job with all the benefits, the high pay, the days off. If you want a mortgage or something, banks love lending to government workers that want to buy a condo or a townhouse. It's because the government can't go bankrupt because they can print an infinite amount of money. It's not like a private person working for a private company that they don't have a printing press. The government can't go bankrupt, but as things get worse, government workers are going to have just the same amount of problems as in the real world. So those are some ideas that are kind of off homestead and just general business ideas. There's a lot more, but these are kind of my thoughts on the main ones. For the homesteading aspect of things, now why do I like homesteading? I like being self-sufficient. Saving money is often better than making money. So instead of me going to buy bananas, I'm going to harvest those bananas shortly. And instead of buying tomatoes, I make my own tomatoes. And instead of buying beef, I buy beef, or make my own beef, and instead of eggs, I make my own eggs. So that's saving money is often better than making money. But going into food, so you could choose an organic. For instance, we decided with our chickens, we're going to get organic feed. So now I have organic eggs that are really good. Now, the problem is you have to ask a little bit more because it has a little more feed cost, right? It crossed my mind to actually not do organic to sell people just eggs for as cheap as I possibly could. So again, a chicken barn is super efficient. Like this chicken gets this much square feet, the cheapest feed that you can get, and then you can get eggs for whatever, $4 a dozen, whereas organic is like $6 to $7 a dozen. So maybe instead of organic, people are going to want to eat something, because when people have less money, they don't have the opportunity to choose higher quality foods and higher quality restaurants and things. So niche crops like microgreens, I wouldn't get too niche. I like to stick with commodities. So that's why I sell eggs with no added value to it. Even our smoothies that we invented are priced for a fruit commodity, okay? And then I sell eggs for the price of eggs, beef for the price of beef, pork for the price of pork, vegetables for the price going right to vegetables. Because if you have something niche like some specialty microgreen, super organic thing, and you have to ask more money, it's going to be a hard sell in bad economic times. So farm to table product. Staying small means you get to cut out distribution, wholesalers, retailers, and you can sell direct to a customer. Now, when things are very expensive, once they get to the big box store or something, people are going to want to save money. And if you're close to a market, they will come to you to buy your eggs for cheaper than in the store because they're cheaper and better. They will come to you to buy a half a cow or a whole cow instead of going to the store because they're getting a better product for a cheaper price. So farm to table, you could even make slightly value added products. You could just freeze berries if you have an orchard. You can make apple pies and applesauce. It depends on your jurisdiction, but a lot of places call it a cottage license. Essentially, you have the ability to sell direct to your local customers in person only. No government, no licenses, as little as possible. And the only people I sell to is me to you, right? So that keeps my costs down. And I don't specialize in one thing as well. You do a multifaceted thing. So when you're selling direct to a customer in person and I would like some carrots. And then I also have beets and potatoes and onions and beef. And, oh, yeah, I'll buy a half cow too, and eggs. Oh, yes, of course. And you become kind of like their grocery store to provide their essential commodity foods. Nothing too fancy, right? Herb and medicinal plant cultivation and kind of apothecary type stuff. So my wife she's reading Chinese medicine books and crazy stuff. She's getting really smart with this stuff and producing things on a small scale, and actually sells pretty good. Like she makes tallow cosmetics infused with eucalyptus, a bunch of different medicines. Now, actually, government cracked down on some of this natural path stuff. So there was local companies that got cease and desist orders because they freeze-dried raw beef liver, put it in capsules, which is very high in so many things, iron. Oh, it's so good for you. But of course, government cracks down on that. But if you're selling to someone in person or your neighbor or something, it's not on the internet, then do whatever you want. If your neighbor's interested in healthy Chinese medicine or herbalism or whatever, like my wife she knows all the natural plants way better than I do. And foraging, right? Rose hips and milk thistle and nettles. I'm actually doing a parasite cleanse with a wormwood that she infused with alcohol. And I forget what else she added to that. Black walnuts and something else. All that stuff is good. Is it as needed as raw commodity food? No. But if you did it in small amounts, there's still a market for that, right? And again, don't get too big where you have to have a retailer, have to put it on Amazon, have to get government licenses, because then all of a sudden your costs go up, profit margin goes down, and then in bad economic times, you'll be stuck with all that product. So stay small, diversified, and local. So eggs. I see a demand for eggs, both because they're a superfood and I want to create the best eggs possible for myself and my family. What do I have? 100 chicks. I got 200 ducks in the incubator right now, so we're going to have ducks. Now, again, you don't want too much government. So where I'm allowed, the quota is I'm allowed 300 layers of chickens. So if I want to go bigger than that, then I'm switching to ducks and turkeys and quail and other things that don't have a quota. But eggs are incredible. So you can sell somebody a carton of eggs, right? And then you got finished product. But in bad economic times, people are like, well, geez, we should have our own chickens and do that. Okay. You can buy fertilized eggs and hatch them yourself. You can buy day-old chicks that we just hatched. You can buy ready-to-lay 5-month-old hens that just started laying for more money. So as time goes on, from the egg to the laying chicken, you create higher value. So if you can't sell a chick, then you have a laying chicken and you can sell that to people. As more and more people kind of realize this homesteading thing, and especially one of our farm stores, PV Mart, just closed in Canada. That's where a lot of people got some of their chicken supplies and feed and things, that it opens up different markets. So first you start at the bare raw commodity. I want chickens and eggs. That's pretty simple, right? Well, what do you need from that? Maybe you're a carpenter, and instead of building backyard sheds, you start building chicken coops to sell. And there's probably a market for that in a bad economic downturn. Now, if I sell somebody a laying hen, I should also have a feed set up, because I have to mix and hammer mill and whatever and add things to my own feed for my own flock. But you can do that feed on a tiny bit more scale, and you can sell feed as well. So the chicken and the egg thing just is awesome for homesteading. If your government doesn't allow you, or your homeowners association or your municipality on 1 acre, Chickens are not noisy. Keep them out of sight and out of mind. Don't get a rooster that's going to be bugging people. Chickens don't smell at all. Give them a nice run. Put a fence around so Karen can't see it, and do your chickens regardless of anybody's stupid rules. Livestock breeding and sale of meat. So this could be goats, sheep, cattle, rabbits. Rabbits per pound versus the feed is like the best thing. The problem is where I live particularly, people view rabbits as pets, not as food. I can butcher a rabbit in, what was my record? 50 seconds, start to finish, skin, gutted, everything. And then we'd slow cook it. And then with that slow cooked meat, it was super tender. She made like rabbit pot pies and things. Goodness, that was so good. So rabbits per pound, excellent. But cattle we got into as well. And they're a mixed, so meat and dairy. So I can go into dairy. And again, I couldn't imagine the government stuff to try to sell that in a store. But hey, neighbor, do you want this? Okay, well, I got this. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Poultry, goat meat. As more immigrants come, it opens up a bigger market. Canada cannot produce enough goats. Like, it's impossible. The demand is so high, and people eat food. Now, I've noticed in some of the grocery stores, the beef section of the grocery store, because beef is very expensive right now, the beef section has shrunk, and the poultry and pork section, especially the pork, has increased. So people's spending habits change because they can't afford beef. It's too expensive. They switch to pork and ground turkey, right? So you try to sell them the cheapest but good food that you can. See, if you're getting into Wagyu beef right now, some super crazy expensive special marbling beef, there's always a market. There's always people with money. You'd have to have a really specific small market, but to survive and thrive, I would try to sell to the majority of people. Beekeeping is another thing. So we did have one hive, winter kill. We're going to get back into that, and it's going to complement our outdoor fruit orchard and pollination as well. And especially our pear trees and everything get bigger, then we have more pollen, and we're going to have some really good tasting honey. Honey is one of those things that lasts forever as well, so I love it as a prepper and a non-perishable. As your sweetener instead of using processed sugar, honey is the best. If you have meat and you want to make meat sticks, instead of sugar, brown sugar, you put honey in it, all natural, and then you don't have to buy sugar, self-sufficiency. Honey is always in demand. Value-added products on the homestead, so cosmetics, soaps. So my wife renders a whole bunch of tallow, and then she can make soaps, bars of soap. I think she did a video with Canadian Prepper on how she makes her bars of soap. Deodorants, and she's actually doing quite well. I didn't think of it because my brain goes to, no, food, water, shelter, security, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? But once those are met, my wife kind of expands to that. There's a high demand for real good, natural, small batch products. Are you going to get super rich doing it? No. Would I go big into one thing? No. You make some bars of soap, but then also make some lip chap, and then also make some deodorants. And what's the worst case scenario? We get to utilize really good deodorant and lip chap if it doesn't sell? Like, oh no. But I don't want a room full of lip chap. You know what I mean? So you want to diversify. That's my opinion. Now, woodworking and things, so maybe even this would go to hobbies. Is somebody going to buy like a handmade rocking chair for a silly amount of money? I don't think so, with the world that we live in where everything's imported essentially and we don't manufacture anything, but maybe. But for woodworking, like I'm a carpenter, I figured in my old age I'm going to go from building massive structures to fine-tuning little things, and I'm kind of excited for it. But birdhouses is something for pest control that I have all the lumber. I actually want to make hundreds and hundreds of birdhouses. I'm going to make jigs and things. I could probably make an entire living building birdhouses. Like, making money is so simple. It doesn't matter what economic time. Now, you're not going to get super rich maybe, but if you spend time at something and provides people something for a good price, whether it's a little birdhouse or a rocking chair, I mean, you can make money at that. Byproducts off the farm. So I had mentioned, so if you have byproducts off of butchering a bunch of cattle and chickens and things, and you got a grinder, you can make dog food with that and have a value-added product with dog food. when you have chickens and cows, you have something called black gold, which is their poop, which is fertilizer, and it's beautiful soil. So you can compost that, turn it a few times. You can sell people compost and potting soil for them to put on their gardens, which is something that they need if they just have their one little acre and are going to save some money growing food in their garden. They're going to want soil, topsoil, black soil, compost, manure. That's what they're going to want. So there is a market for that. And I found, again, the chicken and the egg. What you get off of the homestead is just amazing. Like the amount my cows in their corral are pooping right now. I do a deep litter, so straw, they poop on that, and straw and poop on that. And now I'm going to have like 3-4 feet probably of this beautiful stuff that's got carbon mixed in with their manure. And I just put that in a big pile, wet it, turn it a few times, and I have like black gold for growing stuff. So exciting. All these principles work together, and you can make money on every different way, right? It's awesome. Cut flowers and floral arrangements. Even in really bad economic times, Valentine's Day comes around. Oh, there's a wedding I got to go to, or people are still going to want decorations. Now, will they pay for super high-end specialty flowers? Maybe not so much, but would they like a nice bouquet for their bridesmaids? And Valentine's Day, would you like to give your wife a nice thing of flowers? Yes. Yes, that would be nice. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is where my mind goes, but my wife really likes flowers, so we did some of that and some experiments. So she's starting perennials in here, and we have a hoop house frame. We can do some cut flowers. We did cut flowers outside, and she's actually supplied some local flower people with stems. And then some of the stuff in our greenhouse too, stems as well, our eucalyptus tree, those go into bouquets, and she grows some flowers in here and actually does pretty well. But the worse things get, it comes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but people are still going to want the odd nice thing. If you have sheep getting their wool, I'm not so sure there's a market for wool, honestly. Just the linens that we get from highly efficient manufacturing, mostly overseas. I don't see a huge market for wool, but maybe there is, maybe I'm wrong. Other things, so if you have bees, there's another thing, you could do candles off of that. So use the beeswax to make beeswax candles. And there's other cosmetics and medicines you can make from honey and wax. All of these things are usable things that you produced in the real world. And you can, use your brain and do value-added products, right? So if you have a bunch of beeswax and nobody seems to want to buy your beeswax for some reason, well, then when you have some time, you can turn that beeswax into candles, and then probably everybody's going to want your candles. So if your block of beeswax was $100, you probably turn it into $1,000 worth of candles. So other types of specialty farming, microgreens, you could try mushroom farming. You could build a specific building that has the environment for mushrooms. You can do a U-pick operation, plant a whole bunch of apple trees and Saskatoon berry trees and raspberries outside. And instead of you having to buy expensive machines, if you have a market and people are hurting, they probably have time, so they can do a U-pick operation. That's another great thing. Seedlings, plant sales. So for my boys' homeschooling, we're going to start a whole bunch of heirloom tomato plants in pots, or they are. And, we're doing math. So I said, well, it's this pot. We have all these pots, and then you need a little bit of topsoil, and then you have to plant it, and then you have to every day water it until they're whatever high. And so maybe it costs you 20 cents to do this thing. And then when the plant's big and springtime comes, everybody's going to pay you $5 for your heirloom tomato. So what if you did 100 of them? Well, that's $500. That's so much money, Dad. Yeah. Well, what if you did 1,000 of them? That's $5,000. You could buy an old truck for that. Right? Oh, that's exciting, right? Bring entrepreneurship to the kids. But starting seeds, so if you're going to do a specialized greenhouse, you can start things well ahead of time that other people can't do. Even if you just did a hoop house and you can get a start on other people, but you provide them good quality, what do people want? Tomatoes and peppers, little starts, and flowers for around their house, stuff like that. Online tutorials. Yep, that's something I'm going to pursue with some of the things. Just don't have time, so I put it for free on YouTube. But paid courses, just here's a course on calculating sun angles or this type of construction or how to build a pole building or how to make money at this endeavor, how to make money at that endeavor. Instead of me putting it for free on YouTube, you charge a tiny, tiny bit and give people value that way. The other thing is physical courses, so homestead workshops. So let's say my wife continues reading her Chinese medicine books and is making all these medicines, and we do have our local apothecary out here. Well, there's probably quite a few people that would be interested in that and spend a Saturday afternoon for whatever, good economic times $50 and bad economic times $20. You can come and make your own medicine and cosmetics and things and hang out, and what a good thing. This is great. You helped other people, you taught them a skill, whatever that skill might be, and good things. So farm tours and homestead tours. So once you start getting stuff going on, which, you know, people think I'm set up, but I don't consider myself set up and I don't have time. So all the emails I missed for, hey, can we come have a tour of the greenhouse? I just can't still. But once it's all set up, yeah, you can make an entire living. If you were to build a greenhouse or something, or you had some cool operation or some kind where you do have stuff going on, people are interested in that. People want to bring their kids out to be able to pick the 12 chicken eggs that they're going to buy, and the kids, that'll be a memorable experience if they don't live on a farm. You give them an experience. So a tour, give them even better ideas than what I can provide you on YouTube. So you never know, maybe we'll do farm tours in the future. You do a greenhouse like this, local tourism is the next thing I wanted to talk about. We rented an indoor pool at somebody's big house that they bought. It was $150 for 2 hours with their indoor pool in the middle of winter. So we did private swimming lessons. We taught our kids how to swim there. If people can't afford to travel, it's kind of terrible outside on a nice sunny day. You can put a lounge chair in here. It feels pretty good. It's hot. It's humid. The sun's hitting you. It's a nice experience. You could literally do that. Now, another thing to think about in an economic downturn, recession, Great Depression, or bad times, might have a lot of time on your hands. So what do you do with that time? Well, in bad economic times is when you like to build on the back end of things. So one thing that I would like to do is I started a few books actually, and bring those to market to, again, entertain and help people as well. So books. So if you have time, you write a book. If you have an expertise, you write a book. If you're thinking about building, in bad economic times, there'd be better deals on building material. There would be better deals on equipment and things. People would be hurting and they need to sell something. So if you're in a place where you can buy some building materials, enough to do a project, instead of hiring 10 people to build the building, you have time now. So you just build it yourself. Instead of you should probably cancel your gym membership and go build that yourself, and then you get just as much exercise doing that, something productive. So you save money on the gym membership, and you build it yourself, and you don't hire these people, and it's bad economic times anyways, so take your time and build on the down low, on the back end, and then if the pendulum swings and better economic times come, look what you did on the back end. Maybe you were doing online courses, did a YouTube channel, maybe you wrote a book, maybe you built buildings, maybe you started a business, and then good economic time comes. And this is what I did, right? During COVID lockdowns and things, I got no stimulus from the government whatsoever. And with little kids, brand new little kids, part-time, that's when I built the greenhouse myself. Didn't tell anybody and got suckered into YouTube somehow. And here I am today. Starting a business is just providing value. Now you can provide value to others, but in bad economic times, you want to provide value to yourself. And that brings me to self-sufficiency. It's better for you to produce the things that you need in this world, and then you don't need money. I like spending the money on infrastructure, so I have low ongoing costs, and I produce the things I need. So I was looking at 4 lemons down here, and I don't have to buy lemons. We have lemons there, and I got a pot of ginger, more ginger than we use in a year. The stuff for my wife's deodorant, like that, is over there that she needs, those herbs. so much production and stuff, and we buy not very much, actually, and we'd be okay. I try to cover all my food groups because I'm crazy. You don't have to be as crazy as me, but you can start with a garden and some eggs and plant a few apple trees, and then you don't have to buy apples from another business, and they're not for selling. Those are for you eating, right? So self-sufficiency is just being productive as well. Okay, that's a million ideas. There's a million more. And I'm curious if you have some really cool ideas, let me know. In bad economic times, some good businesses to start. Now, there's a couple just fundamental things I'd like to add to this video. If you don't get set up ahead of time, so take some relatively good times and set up for worse times, then you might get stuck in a precarious situation that you don't want to be in. So think ahead and take steps to prepare for the hard times. So if you're a man, you might not be able to make any money that will allow you to start businesses. You'd be stuck in a bread line or stuck doing dangerous jobs for very little pay if you're lucky. And if you're a woman, humans just will revert to their natural thing. Prostitution, for instance. If you're a woman that doesn't have a man around, that hasn't taken steps to get ready for things, your sexual marketplace is, a sellable item with human beings. So in Venezuela, for instance, things got so bad there that prostitution was such a competitive industry because so many women were in it. So they actually migrated to Colombia, where prostitution, there was a little bit better market for them. Unfortunately, this is just basic things I'm talking about. What's a sign of economic times currently today? People are investing in get-rich-quick schemes because they don't think that there's another way out. So fart coin, for instance, I'm going to hodl my fart coins and get rich on fart coins. And they don't see another way out because things are getting bad. So this is a sign of very bad economic times. Another thing that you see is young women in the United States. So instead of prostitution, because of the internet, we have things like OnlyFans, for instance. Somebody did the statistics of this. Women from the age of 18 to 25 in the United States, 1 in 10 of them, or 10%, have OnlyFans accounts and are essentially selling their body on the internet, not in the physical world, thanks to the internet, for compensation. So we already have prostitution, essentially. Are those signs of good economic times? Not so much. If you don't want to be in a place, whether you're a man or a woman, I'd suggest get things set up ahead of time. And some of these other businesses, like providing people other essentials, like the food that they need to eat, some basic entertainment, some cheap goods, and self-sufficiency, and find a good partner in life. Frugality is another thing. Don't go in too much debt. Don't take big risks when bad economic times are coming. Produce, what you can without a bunch of overhead that gets you stuck, or you're making your own rat race, or it gets you very fragile to any changes in the system, and things change majorly daily. Tariffs, are there tariffs? Oh, there's not tariffs anymore. Oh, there is tariffs. Oh, there's counter tariffs. Oh, we're going to delay tariffs for 30 days. Like, how do you keep track of this? Get back to the land, look after yourself, do businesses without a bunch of overhead, some entrepreneurship ideas, so you don't get put in a place where you're going to be in hard times. These are just some things to think about. But it's very exciting. If you have the entrepreneurship mindset, there are opportunities everywhere. And even on some of these things that, if you're building kitchen cabinets or something, and it's bad economic times, if you're the best kitchen cabinet maker and installer for the best price, there's always going to be a market for that. Even though the majority of people aren't going to be putting in new kitchens, there's still a market for people with money. If you have a high-end restaurant and you have the absolute best food, even though it's expensive, there's still going to be a market for the odd person. But for the majority of public, not so much. I tend to try to market to the most people and provide the most people value that I can. Thanks for watching. I hope that gave you some ideas. The future can be bright if you think about it and get prepared.